Hello. Now today we'll discuss about our project business analytics for video game sales. So we have seen that the console game have grown so far, like from the first generation console game till the eighth generation. Huge technologies have changed, processors have changed, various software technologies have changed. So they have seen huge advancement in the console gaming history till now, and we'll compare how PC gaming is with the console gaming. So PC gaming is better because they have better visuals, better hardware, but they have compatibility issues as well. Whereas if you see for the console games, they are cheaper and they last for an entire generation, and then they are much easier to troubleshoot. But console games are really expensive as compared to the PC games. So in this project, we'll be deep diving into the sales from 1980 till 2016, where we'll be discovering the facts which were not explored before, and then our prospective client will use this to prepare a new game which will help him hit a 1 million sales. So our objectives of our project are to determine the global sales trends of the games over a given period of time, then to determine the top game producers, and then do the time series analysis of publishers as leaders versus the laggards, then to determine top gaming genres and their trends, then to determine the relation between the variables which can predict the sales value, and finally to determine the top 10 features which can essentially used to predict a hit game. Let's move on to the literature review. So we had the article published in Arts Technica which says that reviews plays a major role in predicting the user score. Higher the reviews are, the sales are higher. And then the white paper in Google analyzes the search clicks and analyze that as a game being popular is related to the search clicks as well. And according to Galionkin in his article, YouTube also plays a major role in predicting the sales because people will walk the game demos and all while the game launch, so it plays a major role. And according to Zoo as well, the reviews have had a significant impact on the video game sales. So data set is very straightforward. It was pretty clean, but we had some missing values in it. It had some very good data like regarding the sales in different regions, then what the publishers of the games are, what genre of the game, when it were released on what platform, and the data set was taken from Metacritic and it was combined with VG charts data. So we had the critics data like the critic score, critic count, score, and user count as well. And we have the ratings as well, like the ESRB ratings. So this is the snapshot of the data. And then we'll see that there were a lot of missing values into the data. So we used the R to remove all those missing values to have a clean data set. So basically the missing values we have seen were in the critic score which were raising after 2005, and there were some games which didn't had some values. It may be because when the data set was created the games were not there, and there were some data of year 2020 which is easily we can say that they're outliers, so we have discarded that. And there were few datas which were missing the year of release value, so we removed that as well. So now we'll begin with the descriptive part, so I'd like to invite Rajesh to take it over.
Hi everyone, this is Rajesh. Now that you're clear about what the intention of the project is, let's invest some time in understanding the data better through visualizations, which will help us understand how the data can be exploited in order to achieve the objective. So this slide particularly focuses on understanding our analysis through a visualization for which we have used Tableau as a tool. One interesting finding from this visualization is that the game sales have seen a peak in the year 2008 and it has decreased after that. This could be because of the smartphone and the PC games which have taken the market by a storm. And 2007 was the year where the iPhone was launched by Apple. So definitely the gaming industry has steered towards the usage of phones, and that is the reason traditional gaming systems and consoles have seen a dip in the business in around that interval. Now we try to understand the number of games that have been that have come out from each publisher, so that we know if all the publishers have seen the dip or is it only one of them who has actually faced the problem. We see that Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, and Activision are the top game publishers, and it is well supported by the article from Joe Tenebroso, which says that EA has seen growth in sales because of major investment in the sports genre. Now, talking more about the top publishers, we did a time series analysis, which where we observed that the market is hugely captured by the top publishers, in which Nintendo had the monopoly until the early 2000s. From 2006 onwards, we see the emergence of EA, Activision, and Sony Entertainment. Notably, these publishers were newbies but still managed to get hold of the market quite fast. Now, talking about the top genres, and doing a time series analysis of these top genres, we observe that the top three genres are action, shooter, and sports. After 2016, there was a decline in sports compared to the other two, which shows a spike in the numbers. Now let's see a heat map where we see the relation between, where we understand the relation between the global sales and the critic scores. Which of these are the greatest games is what we try to understand in the first place. Action and shooter are the top genres for great games with highest sales. Then we look at fine games, that is average performing ones. Sports and shooter are top genres for fine games with the highest sales. Satisfactory games, that is the least category. Action and sports are top genres for satisfactory games with the highest amount of sales in that category. Now let's look at the heat map to understand the relation between publishers and the critic scores. Again, we divide the study into three categories: great games, fine games, and satisfactory games. In great games, we see that Take Two Interactive and Sony Computer Entertainment are the top publishers in this genre with the highest amount of sales. Then for fine games, it's Electronic Arts and Nintendo. For satisfactory games, it's again Electronic Arts and Nintendo leading the category. Let's see the relation between developers and critic scores through a heat map visualization. Again, we divide it into three categories. This time, Rockstar North and Nintendo are the top developers for great games with highest sales. Nintendo and EA Sports are the top developers for fine games. Nintendo and Ubisoft are the ones in the satisfactory games category. Now we see another heat map with which will tell us the relation between platform and the critic scores. Great games, we see X360 and PS2 are the top platforms. For fine games, it's X360 and PS3. For satisfactory, it's PS2 and Y. The correlation between critic score and the user score has been explained in this slide. The reason we have taken up this approach is to understand the statistical relation, which would give us a strong clarity on what is the relation level between two variables. So the Spearman's row of 0.536 with R less than 0.001 indicates a statistically significant strong positive correlation between critic score and user score, which technically means the critic score has an impact on the user score and vice versa. This positive correlation means that if critic score is high than user score, if the positive correlation means that if the critic score is high, the user score also will be high. And if critic score is low and the user score is also low, we can elucidate from this correlation that if a game has high critic score, then users are most likely to buy the game, and hence we get high user score. Now the correlation matrix. There is a strong positive correlation between user score and critic score, implying that user scores are influenced by high critic score. So if the user score is high, then people are more likely to like the game, and thus we have high user score. The global sales has small, however, positive connection with the critic score, which means that the high critic score might lead to higher sales. The global sales has moderately substantial relationship with the user score, elucidating that a good user score might not lead to high sales. Now I invite my teammate Arvind to talk about the predictive analytics part we worked on the project.
So now when we focus on the predictive analysis part, so we have taken two analysis. One is the random forest classifier and the neural network. So let's go through one by one. Our basic aim is to predict the video game sales which hit more than 1 million global sales over the next year. So before that, we are creating a data preparation, and followed by that, we are creating a dummy variables and splitting the data set into X train set, X test set, and Y train and Y set. The RFC handles most of the missing values in two different ways and also determines the factors which contribute most to the desired output value. Now, the logistical regression technique is used when the dependent or the target variable is a categorical in nature, often mostly used to predict as zeros and ones. This technique overcomes the unbounded nature of the linear regression method. Since the validation accuracy in the case of the logistic regression is more than RFC, we will pick up this model to proceed and build a confusion matrix. So this is the confusion matrix which we built up, and the results which we have obtained are as 4,475 entries are predicted correctly, which means these 4,475 records which will hit more than 1 million global sales, whereas 320 records which will fail to hit 1 million global sales. So this is the ROC curve which we obtain with the help of true positive and true negative values. And these are the factors which have been contributed for the success of RFCs, which are critic score, release of the year, publisher, Nintendo, platform, journal, publisher, platform X30, journal, sports. So now let's focus on the neural network prediction, which is a secondary prediction. So the factors which are contributing for neural network are journal, publisher, critic score, rating, and global sales. So here we are splitting the dataset into three types with training dataset, test, and validate dataset. So after splitting the dataset, the convergence value which we obtained is 1.86, which is the minimum error value at the 340th iteration. So even here we are determining the confusion matrix. Out of 2048 records, 1673 records which will fail to hit the 1 million global sales, and only 375 records which will hit the 1 million global sales.
So, the interesting facts which we learn from this is that the user code fails to make it to the top 10 features, even it's highly correlated with the critic score. It means that although the user score or user reviews are important for a whole lot of e-commerce website and other industries, but the gaming industry relies hugely on the expertise, which is the critic score. So finally, we'll learn what are the conclusion and recommendations which we learned from this project is that the analysis of global sales revealed that the sales peak in 2008 and then the sales decline for console games. Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, and Activisions were the top game producers, and the time series analysis of top publishers revealed that Nintendo, EA, Activision, and Sony Computer Entertainment are the top publishers. And when analyzing the critic score and the sales, we find out that the action, shooter, and sports were the top genres for great games. Take Two Interactive and Sony Computer Entertainment were top publisher for great games. Rockstar North and Nintendo were top developers for great games, and Xbox 360 and PS2 were the top platform for great games. Now, comparing the handheld console and home consoles make it clear that the home consoles have 4 times more sales than handheld consoles. Further, we saw a positive correlation between a critic score and user score. And using the correlation matrix, we found out that there was a positive correlation between a critic score and global sales. Using the logistic regression, we found out that it was the best model for predicting whether the video game will be a hit or not with accuracy of almost 86%. We got the top 10 features which contribute to a hit game. So critics score was among the top 10 features for contributing towards a hit game. We saw that Nintendo, Activision, and Electronic Arts were the top publisher which will contribute to a 1 million unit sales. Further, we see that the top genres action, sports, and shooter majorly contributes towards a game being hit. And finally, we see that the platform PS3 and Xbox 360 were the top platform which will contribute for towards a game being a hit. Finally, we can apply this model to different industry like movie and electronic device industry. Movie industries can use it to predict the box office collection of the movies, and electronic devices like mobile companies can use to predict the sales of their mobile phones. They can also find out the top features like what are the top hardware or top operating system which will help them achieve the sales. Finally, the limitations of the study were there were no unit price for the games in the data set. Further, there was no information regarding the mobile games in the data set. And further, we see that the user ratings were biased. Maybe the ESRB ratings may be given by teenager for an adult game or vice versa. And further, we see that we had a limitation of tools such as Python, less knowledge of Python, which was required. More knowledge of Python was required for predictive analytics, but that was the limitation for us. And finally, there are a lot of potential for future work, like we can combine the user reviews from social media and perform sentimental analysis on this data set. Further, we can combine the unit price data of the video games, which will help to predict the revenue of the games. And further, we need to deep dive into the game sales and marketing to understand how what impact the marketing strategy had on the sales. And finally, we see that we need to analyze how cloud-based gaming compete with the console game, because that's the modern thing coming up. So we need to analyze both the things, like how console game will survive with the cloud-based games. So this is what our project did, is like analyzing the whole data set to find out how a game will become hit, what factors contribute to it and what factors don't, and how a prospective company can make business out of it. Thank you.